Keith, let me take it. First of all, congratulations, long overdue honor.
Thank you.
Let me take you back to June 1983. I get a call from J. Frank Cashin.
Right.
Jay, I got good news and bad news for you. We got yourself a MVP player, and I don't think the guy wants to come to New York. What do you think? So I called Frank back the next day or whatever it was. I said, Frank, I got an idea. We're up in Montreal. I'm going to get the biggest limousine I could find, go to the airport, and pick this guy up and give him the treatment he's never had before. So stupid Jay goes to the wrong gate. I can never find Keith. Keith takes a cab back to the hotel. I take this gigantic stretch limousine back by myself. Thankfully, Keith, it's gotten better after that between me and you, huh?
Yes, Jay. And fortunately for you, I'm just an old blue collar guy. I got in a cab and got my fanny to the hotel. No big deal. I had no idea that you were going to pick me up in a stretch limo.
Yeah. I remember getting out of the door that day, and the doorman looks at me. He says, "And did anybody got really you missed?" I said, "No, this is how I travel, man. I travel first class." And now, Keith, what was, when we had heard the trade, you desperately did not want to come to New York. Was just because the Mets were losing, the Cardinals were winning? I mean, you said you didn't like the city, but in the last 30 years, the city's kind of like Keith Hernandez a lot.
Well, I had preconceived notions of Manhattan. And remember, Manhattan, you watched growing up as a kid, you watched the movies of, I remember Frank Sinatra's movie, The Detective, in particular, all the crime and just New York was scary as watching movies. And that's my perception of New York. And then coming to play, basically with the Cardinals, it was I just never went out. I wasn't a guy to go out till 4 a.m. Very seldom, Jay. And although I did it a few times in Manhattan because it stays open, and Davey was kind enough on a day game following. I remember more than a couple times I go to Davey and go, "Davey, I've been out late. Can I just not take BP and go back into Dr. Parks' office and go take a nap?" And I would tell the trainers, Steve, I would tell them to wake me up at 12 noon. And I would wake up this is only a handful of times, Jay. But anyway, getting back to your point, I shouldn't have revealed that, but I always had good days though. So yeah, I had preconceived notions of New York, and a lot has to do for me to move into the city, as I said in the press conference, was Rusty. And Rusty said, "You got to live in the city." And Rusty basically took me under his wing along with Ron Darling and Ed Lynch. And Rusty just showed me around Manhattan and opened a lot of doors for me.
Keith, how good were Rusty's ribs on 73rd Street? Remember, a lot of times there, good times there at his place.
Well, I can tell you one thing, Jay. I had them all the time, but they had hits in them.
Tell me about Rusty and his little black book he kept. I forget he kept a book.
It was a red book.
It's a red book.
It was a book he had over the years. Gene Mauch told him how to steal signs, or not steal signs, how to pick up pitchers' tendencies at tipping pitches. And Gene Mauch was one of the first guys to get him to do that. And Rusty, when he was obviously with Montreal. So Rusty had a book dating back, to pitchers when I was in high school, like Joey J and Jim Maloney and all how they tipped pitches. And he would never give it to me. And he said, I'm not giving it to you because you never earned it. And so then the funny part is the season when I retired, 91, we're out to dinner and he brought the red book with him. And he said, "Here, you could have it now." I said, "A lot of good it's going to do me now. I'm not playing anymore." I still have the book. I still have it.
Can you tell me, your first year there with 68 wins, October of 83, Davey becomes the manager. I don't remember what he said in the press conference. He said to Frank, "Frank, I don't know why it took so long to hire me."
Right.
In the next 6 years, 90 plus wins. If the wild card was in effect, we'd been in playoffs every year. Could anybody else but Davey have done what he did with this particular group of guys?
Well, I think I said, I just think Davey's value was that he knew by managing, he managed Dykstra, he managed Doc, he knew what was down in that farm system. And the Mets, all those years, when they were, after they traded Seaver, all the down years from 78 to 83, they never squandered their draft picks. They had good scouting. Joe McIlvaine was ahead of that. And they took advantage of those last place finishes and really kind of sucked it up, building for that future. And it all came together in 84. And still, there was no Kevin Mitchell or Lenny Dykstra in 84, but everybody started filtering in from 84 and making that team the 108 wins in the World Championship in 86. So Davey knew the players and had faith in them. And it's much like what happened to me with Ken Boyer. I had struggled, had a good year, bad year, good year, bad year in St. Louis. And when Boyer came in 79, well, actually he came in the middle of 78. He told me I was the batting champion in Tulsa, American Association, at 350, and I hit 330 the next year. And he had seen me play. And everybody was questioning, well, was I supposed to be this heir apparent of Joe Torre? And am I going to be this? Am I going to be that? There was a lot of doubts. But if it hadn't been for Kenny, who had seen me and had faith in me and put me out there, I hit 231 in 1979, the first month of April of the season, 231. And Boyer, that's a great story. He came back to the plane and told me, "You're my first baseman, Keith. Just relax, have a good time." Well, from that point on, I took off. I think the same thing with Davey with those players he managed. He knew them. He had managed them. They liked him, and he got the most out of them.
Keith, in my position as a PR guy for the team, PR's best friend is a player who'll be there, win or lose, good times and bad time. Remember, Shea, go through the tunnelway. Your locker was right there, right in the front there. How did you become, did you do that in St. Louis too, to stand in front of your locker? I mean, the press in St. Louis wasn't as much as it in New York did. How did you adapt into that role to take on the media? Not take on, is not the right word, to be available all the time.
Well, in St. Louis, I was one of the younger players. And so I really didn't have that kind of, I did have the stature there, but there wasn't that much media. There was the Post-Dispatch and then the Globe Democrat, the morning and afternoon papers. Frank asked me in spring training when I came in 84, first full year. And he asked me in the middle of spring training if I would be the guy that the press can go and lean on and ask the questions for. And I said, sure, I would. And that's how that happened. So I imagine the medium probably got their cue from Frank, I don't know, or from you, but they started coming around my locker. And, the Mets have always been very paranoid about their young players. I remember they had the media coaches in there.
Right.
And, there was so much media, and I think Frank just wanted to he just basically wanted them to be able to take care of their game and develop and not have to have all that pressure of having the media after them, which they did anyway. But I think I took a little bit of that pressure off, but it was all because of Frank.
Yeah. Keith, I've been with you since the beginning, and people say to me, well, has Keith changed? And I said, you're really the same guy you were when I first met you. You speak your mind. You don't hold any prisoners. You're honest. I think that's why the fans love you. Love you for a long time. And is that your approach? Not to be a yes, no kind of guy, just to, tell it not tell it like it is, but just, speak your mind all the time.
Well, I just, you never forget your roots, Jay. And my dad instilled in us, my brother and I, that we were no better than anybody else. And, a lot of people I've known over the years, they get successful and they forget where they came from. My dad wouldn't let me, my dad called it the hi-hat. Don't give me the hi-hat. And I remember one story. I was a kid, very young, and we were making a run up to Sun Valley Dairy, around 2 miles from the house. My dad and I in the car to go get milk. And that's back in the days when you had bottled milk. And I saw the garbage man collecting garbage, and I said, "Oh, look at that! Look at the garbage man." I kind of made fun of the garbage man, and my dad said, "Son, don't you ever get on a man that earns an honest wage." He goes, "That man goes, well, no one picked up the garbage. Where would all that garbage be?" He goes, "And that man has a family, and he's working,
That's great
and
advice.
getting an honest wage, and don't you ever forget it." Okay,
Keith,
and that is something I remember to this day.
Keith, tell me, you and Gary, your brother Gary, and I know very well, had a special relationship. You used to make eye contact with him in games, especially during the playoffs in '86. Tell me the relationship with you and Gary have.
Oh, Gary was my biggest fan. I mean, he's my older brother. He was an All-American at Cal, first baseman. He played 2-3 years in the minor leagues, got with St. Louis, got to Double-A. He has never been jealous of me. He's always been my older brother. I'm 68, he's 70. I'm going to be 71, my gosh, in April. He was always there, my biggest fan. And you know, Jay, whenever we went down south and went on the West Coast trip, he'd come with me to LA and San Diego. You'd get him a room and have to get him tickets, and he'd come in the clubhouse. He's always he's the exact opposite of me. He's my mother and I'm my father. My dad's a brooding Spaniard, and my mom is this fun-loving Scot-Irish woman. And Gary that's why he's in sales, basically. He's been State Farm forever. And he's just got that, he lights up a room. He can walk into a room and talk to anybody.
Good guy.
I'm just the exact opposite. So he lifted me up. Maybe if I was in a slump, I'd call him. He'd make me feel positive. He had nothing but positive energy.
He's one game I wanted to touch on. It's always been one of my favorite games in July of '86 in Cincinnati. Eric Davis slides it to Ray Knight. We have a brawl. But one game that stands out in my mind, when Gary went into play third base, you came in and got a bunt. It threw him out at third base. You remember that game? Was it?
Of course I do. That's when Jesse and Roger played the outfield.
Right.
And Jesse made the last out on a line drive. I believe it was off the bat of Tony Perez. I could be wrong there. And Roger was pitching. They were going back and forth. I mean, JV would bring in Roger. Whitey Herzog did it first. That's where Davey got it from. You don't have to take your pitcher out. Roger was always shagging fly balls in the outfield, and so was Jesse in batting practice. They were good athletes, and Roger would pitch to a right-hander and then go out to right field, and Jesse had pitched to the left-hander. That's what I remember most of that game. The double play was great, but and it was at a critical part of the game.
Right.
But
you were by the batter's box almost, I remember.
I got it on the third base side. It was a Pete Rose was the manager. It was a rookie pitcher. Pete Rose puts the bunt sign on. He's just called up. He's not going to turn around and be brave and try to hit one by me. He's going to bunt. So I really played aggressively and we had the perfect guy, Gary, because he's a catcher. He's used to making those infield throws. And he made the perfect throw across the bag for the double play.
Keith, the one time you got not mad at me, we're at Game 6 of the World Series. We're sitting in the office, me, you, and Darryl Johnson. I had gotten up. I think when the rally first started, I had gotten up to go to the bathroom. You said, "Sit down, don't move." I sat down, and the rally happened.
And you held it.
No, not really, Keith.
So. No, wherever we were, those chairs had hits in it. I mean, it was who was in there? You, me, and
Darryl Johnson.
Darryl Johnson.
Yeah.
We didn't move, and I was going to go back down the bench after who followed Carter? Was it Kevin?
With Mitchell and then Ray.
I was ready to go back down, and I just said, you know what? We're 1 out away from elimination. I'm going to sit here.
Let me talk about SNY for a couple 2 minutes. Did you envision the success you guys would have? 16 years, a couple of Emmys, regarded as the top TV team in baseball. Ronnie was a friend. Why do you think you guys hit it off so well? You have the last 16 years.
Well, I always say the backbone of the broadcast is Gary and Gary Cohn. He is so knowledgeable about Mets. He's a Met fan and knowledgeable. And, he's basically he's the maestro. He's the Leonard Bernstein that has to bring Ronnie and I, weave us in and out of the broadcast and get our expertise. And he's brilliant at it. And he asks questions and pointed questions at times. And it keeps, I think, I can only speak for myself. I'm sure it's the same thing with Ron. It keeps us on our toes because he gets better in the 8-0 games in the third inning. I mean, he gets better, and those are the tough games. And I'll go into storytelling, and Gary's got a good sense of humor too. You know that.
I do.
He does have a good sense of humor, and listen, I'm kind of the comic relief in there to a degree, and I know what I'm doing, and Gary knows how to play it long enough, then get back to the broadcast. So I really feel that Ron and I bring a level of professional expertise. Ronnie knows pitching. I can't talk about pitching like Ronnie talks about pitching. I never cared about mechanics here or there. All I cared about was seeing the ball out of the hand of the pitcher. And so I can't talk about that where Ron does. And I can bring then what hitting and the offensive part of the game and defense. And Ronnie's very good too, because Ronnie's an athlete, and Ronnie played, and he wasn't just a pitcher growing up. He played in the field. He was a good base runner. Ronnie knows the game. So I just think it's a good blend, but I really feel it's all about our production team in there too. Greg Picker, our producer, and Gary. That's why I think.
So, ending up June '83. Did you think, with your beginning, that so many years later you beat Mets Hall of Fame, your number be retired with the Mets? Like, you can't walk out on the streets in New York without people coming up to your autograph. Did you think that ever possibly could happen? Looking back almost 30 years ago.
No, I figured when I was towards the tail end of my career, what am I going to do the second half of my life? Jay, think about it. 37, I'm done. I had the back surgery.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, that's the first half of my life. And it's not like golf. I can't play seniors. I go, what am I going to do with the second half of my life? And it took me a while to figure it out. And I just think it was just a lot of luck. But I didn't watch the game because my last year in Cleveland and my last year in New York was a disaster. I broke my kneecap. You remember that? I missed
Right,
8.
sure.
I missed 8 weeks, almost 9 weeks, and I came back in August, and it was a leg injury. I couldn't run, and so when I was rehabbing, I don't care. I'm 37 years old, and it was hot, and I was like exhausted in the 5th inning. You build up your stamina in spring training. I missed 2 months. And that was not a good year. It was not a good finish for me in '89. And then I go to Cleveland, and I just have a disastrous year. I get hurt all year. I only have 110 at bats. I tear my calf 3 times. And I just didn't like the way my career ended. It wasn't a Derek Jeter ending, a Hollywood ending. And I was a little bitter about it. Not bitter wouldn't be the word, but just not happy about it. So I didn't watch baseball. So 91 was my last year. 90 was my last year. I was on the roster, but out all year with the surgery in my back. So I didn't watch a game till, believe it or not, what got me to watch baseball again was the Sosa McGuire home run chase. How can you not watch that? Even though there they were, 2 Michelin men right there, right in front of your eyes, and still it didn't strike me. I mean, I remember Sammy when he was with the White Sox. We played him in spring training when I was a young kid in the Cardinals. And he was never a big guy, but it just didn't register. But that's what got me watching baseball again, was that home run chase.
Yeah, Keith, and I just want to say, I don't want to embarrass you, but you and I have been friends a long time, and anytime we had a charity thing, somebody at Chase, somebody on CF, you're always there for us. Got a big heart, and I want the fans to know that too. And it's been a pleasure being your friend all these years, and congratulations on the honor. And I'll be leading the applause on July 9th.
Okay, Jay, and my whole family's coming. It's just going to be a wonderful weekend. I'm just so thrilled and so honored. I never would have dreamed this.
But last question before, when Steve Cohen called you, thought he was asking you something else and not about getting to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, his phone number is in my address book, and his name came up on my phone. I'm going, okay, must want to talk about the question about the team. So I said hi, and I just started saying, oh, by the way, I just really love what the team has done this offseason. And we were talking, and I won't say the details about it, for around almost 10 minutes. And he said, well, he goes, that's not what I called you here about, Keith. I called you for. And I said, oh, okay. And he goes, we're retiring your number. I just about fell off my chair.
Well deserved. Keith, I'm going to text you Friday. I have to write something for the yearbook on the numbers. I'll give you text you Friday morning if something you're available sometime.
Okay.
All right. Congratulations again, Keith. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, Jay. Take care.